Okay. It's setting up. How you doing? You
Good. How are you?
Great.
Good.
All right. Hector, we are live on Facebook. I actually made it work. I am so impressed with my
small victories, right?
Okay, so I'm so glad you joined us today because I got to tell you, we really admire everything that you do. So let's start with who you are and what you do. Your name is Hector Quiroga and you own a law firm. And what does your law firm do?
All right, so my name is Hector Quiroga. I go by Hector the Protector. I help immigrants in the United States. I defend against deportation and help people get a green card and do it the lawful and legal way.
Awesome. So one of the things I really like when you call your law firm, you answer the phone and you say it's a law firm for immigrants by immigrants. And I think that's great.
Right.
So, okay.
So I'm an immigrant. So it was an immigrant by immigrants, and a lot of my staff, some of them have been our clients, some of them are immigrants not related to our firm. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that we all really admire about you, there are a couple of things I want to discuss today. Can I just kind of lay out an agenda?
Yeah.
All right. So I want to talk about your ability to execute because most entrepreneurs have shiny object syndrome where we're like, oh, squirrel, let's go do that. And you don't. And it's so impressive. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about all the opportunities you're seeing with the coronavirus. And kind of part of that is you've got other companies that you're working on because it's not just your law firm. Right. Your law firm is about to go out and conquer the world because you're doing all this great stuff and it's growing, but you also have these other things. So, but you have these two other businesses that you think would do really well right now, but they're not ready to launch. And I want to talk about that because most entrepreneurs are like, we'll build the bike as we ride down the street, or we'll figure it out as we go. And you don't do that, which I think ties into your execution. So those are the things I want to talk about today.
Okay.
Where do you want to start?
Well, let's start with the first one, right? So you're saying about execution and how not the shiny object syndrome that sometimes.
Yeah. How do you do that? You are one of the most disciplined people I have ever encountered. Can I tell the story about, you're like, I don't know what story.
Yeah, which story? Yeah.
So when we first started working with you guys, you and your wife had student loans.
Yes.
And I have never in my life seen anyone make a decision about their debt and be so disciplined in paying it off. And you paid off a lot of debt in a short period of time.
Yeah, it was $480,000 that we paid. Cases at my undergrad debt plus our law school debt, both of ours, right? So it was about that much, right? And
yeah, you did it in what, 16 months, 14 months?
It was something. It was almost about 24. We started getting pretty serious those first 6 months, and then right about that 6-month mark, and we said we're going all in, and then that's how it really accelerated the payments, and so yeah.
Yeah. So your ability to focus on something like the debt, right, you also focus on in your business. So how do you do that?
So I think it really does start with a plan, right? So I'm always being a very goal-oriented individual. So at the end of the year, it starts in November, I start really just kind of analyzing my goals. I've been doing this for, I started in 2004. So every November, I use it as a lot of reflection of what went on the year. And then I start really looking at what is it that I want to achieve next year, right? And so December is the time that I use like writing my goals for the next year. And so now I kind of look back at the year, right, and go, okay, I said I wanted to achieve all of these things. Um, what did I achieve? So there's a great exercise of like crossing off my goals. And then I will then carry to the next year the ones that I didn't achieve. So there's two things with this. One is there are goals that you will not achieve, right? For X or Y reason, right? Like the coronavirus is in the middle of this thing, right? Or something like that. And it's number one, I forgive myself for it. The idea isn't to flagellate yourself as to why you set up a goal and didn't achieve it. The point is just a tracking tool. Really, that's all I have is just a tracking tool. But I do analyze what happened. What were my blockers? What distracted me? What didn't really have, right? And then I set it. I carry it on to the next year. And so what is becoming is that every year since 2004, I mean, I got things in there like getting into law school, paying a student loan debt, having a baby, right? And it's really cool because actually when you look in the original writings, right, this is the same document, by the way. So I don't have like a bunch of different,
Wow.
the same Word document.
So it's not stuck in like this notebook over
No,
here or the random legal pad, because
no.
that's a problem that I have.
Yeah, it's just the same document and it's just typed, right? And so it starts with 2004 and it goes till now. And so what happens is when I was reading it not too long ago, back 2004, I go look for it. What's interesting is when I wrote those goals in 2004, 9, whatever year, sometimes it looked like it was a very unachievable thing. And so I didn't speak English very well. And you can actually see it in the writing. You can see the typos and you can see it is very raw, right? And some things look really, just getting into law school, right, was very difficult for me. Getting through law school, getting through the bar exam. You can see those things through. It's kind of like a book of life almost, right, where you're seeing these things. But the thing is, the mindset when I was writing the goals, it was like a hard thing to achieve. I mean, it was like now when you look back, passing the bar exam, it's like, well, I did that, right? Not as it doesn't have as much emotional power over you as like it did when it did. And so
Right.
it's interesting because now that I'm writing my goals, I know that whatever I write, it's probably gonna come through. It's like I'm really willing that into life. So there's a lot of mindset work that goes into this and say, I know I can double and trouble this company. I know I can open a second company. I know that I can do certain things with my kids, for example, right? And that's what it goes into it. And so every quarter, so Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, I do a little bit of check against, okay, last December I wrote this, is end of March, where am I at? Ooh, okay, I'm a slow down on here. So, I've done things like, for example, there was a point, 2018, I got to 210 pounds, right? And I was like, no, in the goals, I said, I want to drop, 40 pounds. And I, been able to drop, didn't quite did 40, but I did like 32 pounds, right? In a period of 90 days. And so it's very interesting just to have that goal, something measurable and go for it, right? And if I don't make it, then I'm just going to carry it to the next level. The idea is that it doesn't become an excuse that you just carry everything and your list gets better. So long as I see progress, I'm happy because, a 12-month period is an arbitrary number, right? It could be a 13 period. I mean, it doesn't matter so long as you're moving on the right direction. I think goal setting. And so I have then taken this exercise and I had shared with my company, 78 employees at this point. And I require that they sort of kind of follow this. We reflect over the year in November, and we post to our membership site, which is a an internal intranet, right? I ask for people's professional goals, personal goals, that they feel okay with sharing with the rest, right? Because I think, and we have started this now for 2 years, and I've seen people's growth, right? And so if they grow, the company grows, and so it's been a very neat thing that we started here about goal setting and just laser focus on what is it that we want. And so it kind of also checks when you got money, right? We have an influx of cash. I go back to my goals and say, I said I'm going to pay student loan debt. That's what it was important to me. It helps me stick to that instead of getting the influx of cash and then go, oh, but I want to buy something, right? I
Like,
get
go do this.
deviated. So that's part of that, right?
Yeah, I think what you said was so interesting. So you go back every quarter and kind of see if you're still on track. But I think that is also a great opportunity to say, all right, so these were my goals. And I
Right,
have all these other things that sound really cool. Do they actually move me closer to my goal or not?
right.
And that's a great way to
It's
do.
is it getting any closer or is it not, or is it getting it further? And then if there is something that has happened that deviates you from your goal, right? Then that's the type of notation I make. Gosh, this was a blocker, right? This thing really just, I did not account for this. And it kind of goes in that reflection time. And then when I readjust my target, now I know I have an enemy in the house, right? I know that, and that helps. And so there's some goals. It's something silly. So I'm a Catholic man. You know, that's what I do. And so I wanted to learn to pray the rosary. And what was sad is that it's something not that difficult, right? But you know, I carried it almost for 4 years, from year to year. And then what it was is I wasn't really honoring it, right? Like I wasn't really, okay, let me just sit down and I want to memorize this and I'm going to ask somebody to show me. And not until I did that, I realized, boom, but now I can look at it these two ways. Well, I can look at it and say, oh, it took me 4 years to learn this. Or, you know what, I had a goal and I achieved it. It took me a little bit longer than I wanted, but I did it, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of how it is. In the beginning, there was a lot of almost shame. I don't know how else to put it. When you look at your list and you're like, oh, I have, let's say 10 and I achieve
And I got
only two, and oh no. And once I was able to detach from that meaning, right? And it's just a tracking, it's just a tool. It's just like anything else, like a budget, right? It's not good or bad, whether you are on budget or not on budget, doesn't matter. It only matters is, can you adjust your sites to navigate?
yeah.
That's all there is to that. So yeah.
So you said something which not on our topics, but I would love to talk about. Um, when something comes up like coronavirus, when there is a block, you make a note of it. So we're certainly not through coronavirus,
Right.
but what have you seen in this? What are you going to do differently going forward in light of coronavirus? Have you even thought about that yet? Or am I making you think on the fly?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes, I'm keeping a journal about things that so I did an exercise the other day. I said, look, if I would have the knowledge that this was going to happen
Mm-hmm.
24 months ago, what would I have done differently to prepare my office to survive this thing, right? And I sat down with my management team and we kind of went over and said, okay, we would have done X, Y, Z, right? And those are things that when we come out of this thing, I'm going to fix, right? Like I'm going to go in and say, you know, we have to be a little bit better without physical presence. We have to start, you know, have a little bit streamlined, more of our technology, things of that nature. But the surprising response has been, in our team at least, has been like, gosh, we were kind of pretty well prepared. You know, without knowing it was a virus, it was like, you know, we had savings accounts, we had credit lines,
Wow.
we had the technology, we had remote work already set in place. So you know, one of our companies is an IP telephony company. So we have IP telephony where we can put I can put anybody in a phone call anywhere in the world. Uh, you know, with 3 clicks, and so we were pretty well. I mean, luckily, obviously, but there's certain things that we can fix, and so I think yes, there is a list, and that's reinforcing a few stuff, but I think that's pretty well set up. One of the things is I felt, especially with what is happening right now, that you know, niching down has been very, very successful when it comes to having a clear message to the market, to know exactly what your product is, to understand what your SKUs are, to really be able to understand your cost of production, your work. It's very, 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 very good. And I have always said, you know, I teach at the law school. I tell students, look, you really have to pick up a niche. It's difficult to do all these things, right? But I think that sometimes maybe we can take it too far. I would like to diversify it a little bit more. It's like, oof, if immigration, you know, we're talking about shutting borders and all this stuff. It's like, I feel like a lot of my eggs are in one basket, maybe opening it a little bit because, you know, things like this can happen. So there's changes coming and changes that are being implemented right now with my team. But yeah, for sure.
Well, and I know that was a conversation that you had with your CFO. So you work with Pam,
Right.
and I don't know if you know this or not, but I every time a CFO talks to one of our clients, their notes, and so I read those notes and we talk about what clients are doing. And a lot of times after she hangs up with you, I get this email from her. She's like, I so admire Hector. He's
Oh,
amazing. And after a phone call not too long ago, you were talking about we shouldn't do just immigration.
right.
We should continue to be a firm for immigrants by immigrants, but immigrants also do all these other things.
Right. So,
So,
there is a little bit of shift on our, perhaps on the services we offer, but the demographic and the message is, can be very related, right? And so it's been frustrating because, we get somebody's citizenship or a green card or a visa or a work permit or whatever that might be, and then they go on life and sometimes they can't find the right help to go in, and because we're so niched down, we kind of leave them alone. And so I feel like there's a path that we can do, and we can kind of reshift a little bit without completely forgetting who we are and our core values, right? And so that was kind of one of the ideas coming out of this, and Pam was implemental on sort of the thought process and the philosophy. Is that sound? Are we chasing a shiny object now? Is this out of fear? I mean, where is these ideas coming from, right?
yeah.
And I think that's what we decided to do, and it's a long-term project. It's probably going to be a 24-month project, right? But
Yeah.
we'll get there, yeah.
Well, and what's so interesting is you're actually staying niched down. You've niched down to a client.
To a demographic, right?
Yeah. So instead of niching to an area of law, you've niched to that client demographic. So you're staying niched. You're just serving that client in
Right.
more ways than you had before. I mean, you're expanding your service offering. So I think that's fabulous. So all right, so you talked about it's going to take you 24 months to do that.
Right.
Probably. And you've got two other companies that are in development right now. You've got the telephone company and you've got a SaaS
Software.
company, the software.
Okay.
And I know that you were like, oh, I wish those were ready because those would be great to launch right now.
Right.
But you're not launching. And I know so many people that are like, let's launch it. We'll figure it out along the way. It'll get done. It may not be pretty, but we've got this opportunity. Let's take the opportunity while it's here. And you have not made that choice.
Right. Well, I think it's simple. I do think that no matter what, when you put something to market, service or product, it has to be a solid product. You can't go to market with something that is bad, or you're going to miss your opportunity. So if you good is good enough, so if the product is good enough to launch, great. Yes, you can learn things as you go, but I don't think my product is good enough, and I think the harm that I would do to the company by launching too early and not being able to actually honestly say to a consumer, hey, for this money, we're going to give this service and ensure that the service is reliable and that we are actually giving you what we promised. I think we would just completely crash the company. So I'm not there yet. It'll be a few months before I feel like, yeah, this is something that I know whoever buys this thing is going to be happy with it, right? And so I think that's what we have to worry about, and that's why I'm saying not yet. Unfortunately, it's a missed opportunity. It would be a great time to launch. I can see the need for it, but at the same time, if I say to you, let me give you IP telephony, and let's just have this life together, and it's patching and it's dying and it's not really working and the sound doesn't work, you're going to abandon it, and you're probably not going to be very happy, and you're never going to refer anybody out. So that's why we thought, let's just wait a little bit until we're ready, right?
Yeah. And I think really what that comes back to, again, is your discipline.
Right.
Like there's an opportunity, you could make some quick money, it's out there, but I think you're right. Ultimately, launching, and I'm going to call it a half-baked idea. I know that you're like 90% of the way there.
Right.
but that last 10%, like before it's really ready to go to market, is so damaging to you and your brand, and
Right.
it's just not worth it. But you have to be disciplined when you see that great opportunity. This would be so good to launch now. It's hard not to take that opportunity. So
and that's you see, like, you wouldn't sell a consumer a half-baked item or a half-cooked meal, right?
yeah,
So we want to make sure it's cooked properly before we give it out, because then is when it will be really, really, really good. So
yeah, that is fabulous. Okay, so one of the other things that we've been so impressed that you do is you've managed to see the positive in the coronavirus. Like, so you see the glass as half full, not half empty. And I did have, so I think like a lot of America right now, I spend some downtime scrolling through Facebook, right?
yeah.
So it's all about the Facebook news with me. And actually, this was not a meme. This was, there's a guy named Warren Rustand, is who he was president of YPO. He was in the Ford administration, and he's very involved in EO. And so he's been doing a series of lectures, and I'm in EO, so I've been attending lectures. And one of the things he said was there are people that are glass half full, and glass half empty. If your glass is half empty, pour the water in a smaller glass. And I think you do that. I think you always manage to find that glass half full. You see the potential and the opportunity. And that's hard. I mean, that's not, that takes, again, that discipline. How do you manage to do that?
Well, sometimes it's easier than others. Number one, I mean, the thing is, there are variables, right? And so there will always be variables. And we tend to be very absolute in life, I think. We tend to say, this idea is going to work, or this idea isn't going to work. And the reality is, neither of those things are true. The idea kind of works, but it wasn't perfect. Or the idea actually might not work, but we learn a lot out of it. So I can't tell you how many things we tried that completely flipped, didn't go well. However, we learn a lot. And silly things like, for example, we wanted to do a Facebook Live, right? And then we learned that the microphone and that this microphone with this light was a terrible idea, but it wasn't perfect. Or the idea actually might not work, but we learn. So I can't tell you how many things we tried that completely flipped. Feedback didn't go well. However, we learn a lot. And silly things like, for example, we wanted to do a Facebook Live, right? And then we learned that the microphone and this microphone with this light was a terrible idea, but it wasn't perfect. Or the idea actually might not work, but we learn. So I can't tell you things we tried that completely flipped. Feedback didn't go well. However, we learn a lot. And see things like, for example, we wanted to do Facebook Live, right? And then we learned that the microphone and this microphone with this light was a terrible idea, but it wasn't perfect. Or the idea actually might not work.
Okay, Hector, I think I solved the problem.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, that guy sounds really smart. No, well, so there you go. So this is a perfect example.
There we go.
So then what happens is you probably learn about a setting or something, right? And what happens is this kind of goes on your tool bag, right? And in the next try, you now know that this is the right setting, the right camera, the right time. And we fail by, fail a lot, fail fast, because you are not really failing, you're learning, right? And so that's the kind of way.
You fail forward. Fail in a way that moves you forward.
It moves you forward, right? And so, okay, we're in this business, and like, what happens if the variable changes and now we don't have clients coming into the office and we have to adapt? Then what happens is we adapt, right? Like we got to figure out a way. I try not to say, okay, there's two things here. One is this virus is probably not gonna wipe out mankind. I have no control over that. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. It's really not up to me to worry about it. It's not up to me. I mean, I have to do my part of social distancing and that type of thing, but as far as solving that issue, it's beyond completely my control. So there's no point in me worrying in a second about that. What it is within my control is my company and how I can adapt and how I can coach and how I can motivate and how I can change tools. So then I can go on that and learn fast. So we adapt faster, right? But it is a painful process, right? This idea of sometimes trying and you put so much hope on it and it just sort of collapses on you is difficult. So I think that's been kind of my approach with everything. I mean, if you change the variables quickly, right? Then how fast can I adapt? And the faster you adapt, the better company you have, the better time you have. And I think that's what keeps me, I don't necessarily think positive or negative. I just see it as opportunities to adapt, you know?
As a moving forward.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're, yeah. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, obviously technology is not our best thing. This is the first Facebook Live that I've managed to get live.
Awesome.
So, that's a step in the right direction.
Yes.
Of course, I forgot to start the recording on time and then we had that feedback loop thing. But
Right.
yeah, like we know, we learn what to do. We learn how to make the change. We take that, we put it in our toolbox and we keep moving forward.
Right. And so, video, I mean, we've been able to done a lot of things with video, right? So I've been very heavy on marketing always. It's just been kind of like,
Yes, you have.
It's been kind of my secret love, I think. I always have liked marketing. And so, yeah, I mean, when it came to do this type of stuff, we were kind of like, oh, well, we just got to distribute these. We got to start a newsletter. We got to do these things. And it was easier for us that I think most businesses that were going around like, how is it that I do a, email, and so an email newsletter or having lives or that type of stuff. But we've been able to use things like from the legal work and apply it to the marketing world and vice versa, and it's kind of moving. But that's the way we see it. And also I think the virus, just to go back to the original question, why do I think this is good, is I see it as an opportunity to, it's like a perfect excuse, right? So you can use this is the perfect excuse for anybody to fail, right? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, I had to shut down my company because what am I supposed to do, right? And it would be a politically correct answer. Nobody would really say to you.
Everyone would understand.
So we can all throw the towel and say it was a virus, right? Or precisely because you have this blanket excuse, why don't you just try whatever you need to try that was stopping you in the past and see how it goes, right? So we're trying we're trying so many new things, right? Because if it doesn't work, we can always say, well, coronavirus, I mean, we had to try something new, right? And everyone's like, yeah, good point, right? So I'm actually using a lot of that with my clients. There's a lot of clients who say like, I really don't want to review things by email. I really just need to come into the office and I want you to explain it to us. And that was something that we have this very hard thing penetrating in our demographic, right? And you understand some of clients work, are migrant workers that are on a field and they don't have access to email to review documents in the field. So they don't have this. And sometimes they're just like, I'll just come to the office and do it. But now, right, we're kind of like, well, I mean, we kind of have to
go to the office.
Turns out that we're able to train and teach a lot of things, and we're getting a lot of work done this way. So again, the opportunities are opening to good things. And there are things that don't work. I'm like, hey, we tried it again, coronavirus, right? Like it gives you this opportunity. But I think some people, unfortunately, they do like a restaurant and stuff, they might have to close, but there's other people who just can say, I'm going to pivot, I'm going to deliver, I'm going to ship, I'm going to bake goods and send them through the mail, whatever it takes, right? And they're trying new models to make money, new services, new SKUs, and they're going to be better. There's a few things here in Spokane who so there is this company that sells to restaurants. They sell all the produce already chopped. So you can buy 10 pounds of onions chopped. So then the restaurant owner doesn't have to pay the staff to chop every onion to put it in your meal. What happens is they had all of these foods, and they obviously restaurants are kind of like demand is down, it's closing. So they have to go to the public, right? And all of these family members are going, gosh, I much rather buy the onions already chopped. And what happens is they're now coming out and saying, this has been so successful that we're not going to go back to our old model. We're not going to sell only to restaurants. We're going to open it to everybody because it's been so successful. So there's new ideas that are like, huh, and it's the same product. It was just a way to deliver it, right? And so I think that's kind of where I'm looking for opportunities of how I can improve my company, and just a lot of them are coming through. I mean, that's cool.
I think one of the things that enables you to do that, you're doing it from a very secure place.
Right.
All right, this is a meme that I saw,
Right.
that said, all you people that we kept telling you to have 3 to 6 months of operating cash in a savings account, who's sorry now? Like, and I know that you are very fiscally conservative. And for instance, I hope I can say this, you have elected not to get a PPP loan because you don't need it, right?
Right.
So you can do this because you are fiscally conservative, because you have a profitable company that has been profitable, and you've done all the things that I'm going to do a plug for us at the moment that we advocate, that
Right.
matches very well with your approach to money. There is no fear for you in this. I mean, there's some people that encounter the coronavirus and, as you said, threw in the towel and shut down.
Right.
And there's some people that are trying everything they can from a place of fear.
Right.
And then there are people like you
Right.
that you're in a good place. So you're not doing it out of fear. You're doing it out of opportunity and hope and excitement. And like, there's all this stuff that I'm learning about my company, that I'm learning how to do better, that are going to be great improvements for the future.
Right. Right. That is true, and I think so. What you guys had taught us, and profit first, how to manage. I mean, all of the advisors and coaches and people who help is been. I think it's very consistent, really, on this, and it's like, you should save for a rainy fund. You should not, right? And so we were able to do that, and we some people call it envelope system. Some people, we like to call it here the bucket system, right? And so, we take some.
That's a little more Dave Ramsey. I love
that. Right. It's kind of like you take from the top and you put a little bit to the rainy fund, and you take your profit and you pay your taxes, and at the end of the day, you got your costs. And so we've been blessed to do that. And even though we were paying the student loans, we didn't say, let's just wipe out savings. I mean, we were trying to do it the best we could, and it was that discipline that you're talking about. But I think that should be a good, and yes, the amount of power that it has enabled us, it's been powerful because I'm not coming from a place of fear. I'm coming from a place of, okay, here's what we need to do. In the PPP loan, I don't have to, because it truthfully didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't. Like, I don't know why the government wants me to keep payroll open if the business isn't profitable, or if the business isn't paying its own way. What you do is you lower expenses. I mean, this is a tested principle. You don't continue to run the business and then go into debt. Now let's just assume it's not free money. Okay, let's just say that, because there's a whole talk of whether or not this is actually going to be free money. But I also believe that there is nothing free on life, right? Like you gotta give value for that money. This bailout thing coming to us, I don't know. I don't think it's needed at this point. So I don't want to take it from maybe the next business owner
that really
does need it, right? And so I feel that because we've been fiscal responsible, and so there were challenges that were like, so you mean to tell me that your competitor is gonna get $200,000 cake and you're not, and you're okay with that, right? I'm like, I'm perfectly fine with it, because you gotta do you gotta do something with it. And if that is maintaining payroll for no production, that's not a good way to go at this. Like, now if your business is producing, at least your income and revenue is covering your costs. And so that's where I had a lot of problems with this. And I didn't truthfully understand it. And I decided I don't have to get into debt. Maybe it'll be free money, maybe it won't be free money. We'll see in 4 months what's going to happen with these loans. But after getting in so much debt on student loans, and I saw things like, what didn't they say? They said 10 years, if you are in a public service career, right? Like you're a prosecutor, a public defender. If you are for 10 years doing this, a lot of your federal loans would be dischargeable, or not dischargeable, forgivable, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there is just article after article after article of people saying, hey, we did that. And now they're saying that, I don't qualify, or a lot of, and so these people gave a decade. So I don't want to be on that boat. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just, not believing in the government too much. I'm just kind of like, okay. So that's with that. And, we'll see.
The underlying fact is you don't have to.
That's right. Right.
And that's the amazing thing. Whether this is here or not, you're still stable.
Yes.
And I think that's huge. I think that
I'm blessed, and I know a lot of people are in this position, and that's something. But I also created that discipline, and actually, and it was not you guys, but I had other advisors go, "What are you doing? Why are you not investing in your company? Why are you not?" I would have depleted a lot of my cash reserves, and today I would be crazy, right? And so I'm able to sleep okay. I'm able to think clearly. I'm able to make decisions like, maybe today is not the day to launch, or maybe we're not ready for 6 months, because I'm not desperate to get that dollar, right? And I do think that lawyers who are in financial detriment make terrible legal decisions. Like they take the wrong case, or they are going to argue, or they're going to take certain cases to trial, knowing that that's a terrible case. And instead of saying the right thing, which is like, hey, we probably better settle this thing out, they're going to just push it because they need to, right? And that's not good ethics to your client, right? Like you don't want to come from that perspective. So I look at it from that perspective, and I think it's paid off so far. Now, I don't know, we have a stay-at-home order with essential workers, but until May 4th, and the governor of the state is talking about extending it until May 18th. So there is a lot of, how is that? It's about a month out still that I gotta figure this out. So I feel good, but I'm like, how? There's a point where more preparation is, is it 6 months? It's gonna be a year.
Here we are.
Yes.
You did make a point. You said you're very blessed.
Yes.
I had a Catholic priest tell one of my best friends one time. And I think this is, my mother said it, my grandma, like everyone says it. God helps those who help themselves. You're blessed because you put a lot of that work in.
Right.
You weren't just sitting on the sidelines going, okay, God, let's put $1,000 in my account.
Yeah. Well, you met me. We met each other right about 2014, 2015, perhaps, Brooke. We've been working together, and it's very different, right? It was very much, we started from negative, right? And we slowly have gone here, and it's been putting that discipline, and partly is I think I read this from Kiyosaki, Robert Kiyosaki, and that Poor Dad. Yeah, I think in that book, there's a point where he says, you don't really appreciate money until you've been like bankrupt once or something like that. Like he talks about that. And I remember reading this book and going, what's he talking about? Like, come on, really? Like you have to be broke to understand? Like, no. But after I've been broke, negative, hundreds of thousands of dollars, now the value of $1 counts, right? Like I really want to make sure that there is some concept of frugality in certain ways, and not necessarily cheapness, but I want the value for my dollar. So even how I approach my relationship with with you guys, right? I want to make sure I'm getting my value. I am, by the way, right? But
Best time to say that.
right? I am, by the way. But here's the thing: if I am not, I will tell you, right? Respectfully and professionally, I would do this, and I say this to all of our vendors, right? And also, my clients need to see the value from me. If they see the value, they're gonna be paid on time. They are, and it's really interesting.
And they're going to be your best referral source.
Absolutely. And they're going to say, go to Hector, right? And so, and what I've experienced so far is that, yeah, we have some payments that are kind of like, but gosh, our collection rate is still like 95%. It dropped from like 98%. So clients are—
Hold on, Hector.
Yeah.
You do realize that I go out and I teach CLE and I speak.
Yeah.
And the average collection rate, they say is, well, it's gone up from 85 to 86%, according to the last thing. Most people I see are down in the mid to high 70s. And so I go out and I'm like, oh yeah, your collection rate can be over 90%. And I had a mutual friend of ours, I was working on something and I was talking to him and Sam said, 90% is not high enough. We're all at 95 or 98. I'm like, yeah, Sam, I can't go out in public and say our clients are at 98%.
Yes.
But by the way, our clients are at 98%.
Yeah.
But like, that's huge that your collection rate is at 95%.
It really is. And, and I was like, I thought it was like going to drop like quite a bit because of what's going on. And here's the part that it was refreshing for me, because we sat down and said, partly is we're delivering very good value. We are calling clients. We are keeping them informed. When something happens, we're the first ones
You're being proactive.
When bad news come, because it happens, right? When bad news happen, we are the first one to call the client and be like, okay, how in the hell, what are we going to do to fix this issue? We're going to go with you the next, right? And there's this sense of appreciation that we're doing it, right? Yeah, not everything is rosy. I get that. But somehow I think that's reflecting on that. I think that's a good metric, not just for how much cash flow you have, but just to see, are they seeing the value, right? Because if they see the value, there should be no difficulty on asking and getting that payment, right? If they don't see the value, then that conversation needs to happen. And so we've been blessed bad because we have put that into place, and I think that's just kind of both ways as well. Yeah.
And you also have your payments set up in a way and automated in a way,
right,
that you've set the expectation,
yes,
that you all are going to get paid, and
right,
you've set it up so that you do get paid. And I think that's also huge. So, yes, it all goes in there together. And
I don't know. I mean, I always say maybe it's just the Hispanic way, right? Like maybe it's just Latino way. The Latino way is like, how much is it? How much is it going to cost me to the penny? Because it was very hard for me to be a billable lawyer, because I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like to come with any legal issue from family law to anything and be like, look, I just don't know how much your bill is going to be, but just wait for it every 2 weeks. And, and then we can go over it together. That just never sat well with me, right? I much rather come to somebody and says, oh, you're in a DUI situation, it'll be 20,000. Fantastic. Can I give you 5 and I make payments? Great. Yeah. Please take this problem away from me, right? But somehow every time I talk to other lawyers, they're like, gosh, my clients won't pay that. I'm like, but they might end up paying that. You don't know that, right? Why don't you ask?
And you're not showing them the value.
Right. But I appreciate the ability to budget for this much better just by, but you tell me is this much, or you can tell me is this much up to settlement, and if we go to trial, it'll be okay, whatever. So I think flat fees helps, because then at least there is a lot of clarity on both sides as to what the agreement is, and therefore it makes it a little easier for them to pay you because they know what it is, right? So having a flat fee system that was automatic has also been one of the more revolutionary things that have helped the firm stay afloat on these times, right? It's not just savings and lines of credit, it's just that there is a lot of residual.
It's still happening.
Yeah.
Well, and we were working, we had a family law firm.
Right.
And one of the things we set up for them, because that is one of those, like,
Yeah.
you go in, it's really busy in the beginning, and then it kind of gets quiet for 6 months, and then you ramp up and you may or may not settle, and then you have to go to trial. And to go to trial, you got to have this big, huge bucket of money.
Mhm.
And you're 9 months or a year into it, and nobody has money because now you're supporting two households. It's really tough. But one of the things we set up was kind of almost a flat fee, and you paid so much in every month in preparation for trial, so that by the time they got to trial, they had a war chest.
That's right.
And if they settled, then, I mean, it was sitting in the client's trust account. We'll just send it on back. No big deal.
That's right.
And that made a huge difference because, like you said, their clients could depend on it. They knew what it was going to cost every month. It wasn't a, what's my bill going to be?
Right. Right. And there's a lot of things. I mean, we talk about niche down. So there was a point where I was not niche down. This is part of what we learned together, right? Because I was doing everything. I was doing landlord tenant, bankruptcy, family.
Because when we met, you were doing about $20,000 a month, I think, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Well, gosh, yeah.
You have 78 employees now.
Right. Exactly. Where we made it to 85,000 last year, and I don't know what's going to happen with 85,000 now through the coronavirus, but the growth has been insane, and part of it is because I understand why it was difficult, and there was a lot of fear, right? Like, wow, what if this case will take me so many more hours than I asked for? So I just rather not flat. I don't want to go flat. I want to go hourly. And when I learned to do the cost and all of that, the SKUs really, that's when I learned, okay, this is how it really needs to be. And then, like you said, then the money goes in trust accounting. We didn't use it. Hey, good for the client, right? It goes back. This is good. We ended up settling. That's a good result. You settle it for less. The client's getting money back. They're happy. But what I was learning is when I was asking for those like say family cases, they would give me a certain amount down. Sometimes the clients thought that was it, right? Or at least they would play, well, I already gave you 5,000 on where it's all, and it's almost like they were getting those biweekly bills, and they were like, as if they were like, Mouse.
I gave you $5,000. Why are you sending me with them?
I already told you the money went out. And so anyway, it just, the way you collect it, if you can automate it, then things can really take off and stabilize your cash flow, which would make things a lot easier.
Yeah, but it's setting that expectation in the beginning of the relationship.
That's right.
So, okay, Hector, we said 45 minutes. We're at about 52. Is there anything else that you want to say about being focused, being disciplined, the fact that you execute, you don't get distracted, the opportunities you see in coronavirus?
I think every person running a business, whether that's a one-person shop or 1,000 person or at least 78 people, right, is you got to figure out your best user, what are you the most valuable, right? And so there's so many things I can be doing, but coming with a plan, coming up with a goal, doing that vision and that thinking is so valuable. Doing some of the marketing, that's where I'm needed the most. And so if I go down to being the one who's reviewing the form, that someone else can help me with that. I really need, right? And I think that's was game changer for me, is like, where is Hector's biggest impact, and fight to do that. Mm-hmm. That's what I suggest everybody.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's a great way to end. Hector, I so appreciate this. You were great.
Thanks for the invite.
And all right, so I do want to put a little plug in. So we are doing these twice a week, every week. Tuesdays, it's with someone that we admire, that we think has a great thing to teach people out there. And Fridays are usually a little more tactical. So this week we're going to go over why you need to have a cash flow. I know that you've got a cash flow forecast, right?
That's right.
And you look at it, you kind of live by it. And so we're going to talk about why it's important, how it changes your outlook on your company and on your decision making, and also a little quick lesson about how to actually do it. So that's Friday, I think at the same time as today.
I'll be joining.
Awesome. All right.
Thanks. Man.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Bye.